Welcome back to Veteran Idiot. I'm Art. This is Scrappy, if you haven't been keeping up with the show. Scrappy is our 91 Mustang LX Foxbody notch that has been abused and stolen at some point and really hurt with all the stuff that it's had done to it. But, so what we're trying to do with this car is we're trying to decide where to go with it. Last couple times I've taken it out, it is puking out coolant. It's like a high pressure before the thermostat opens. I'm not sure what that's all about. It's also puking oil out of the oil pan, and it's got a rattle under the valve covers on the driver's side, so that's an issue. And then it sounds like it's got maybe a knock in the bottom end. It's hard to tell. So with all that being said, the engine really needs to come out and be gone through. That's going to happen. It's going to come out. We're going to go through it and see exactly what's going on with it. And then the options we need to consider, and what I'm enlisting you guys to help me with, is we need to figure out what to do with it beyond that. So the options we have here is, provided this engine is good and it just needs some lifters or something like that, and there's no knock on the bottom end, provided it's good, the options that we have with Ford in this era with the OBD1 is that we can go through, to get power out of this engine, we can go through keeping this intake upper and lower. We can get heads, we can get a cam, but in order to make that work the best that it can, we need to get a mass airflow sensor, we need to get a throttle body, injectors, and then we need to tune the A9L computer down in it. It's a pain. It's not great. All those items I just listed are expensive. And is it going to be enough to make this car have the power that I think it should need? I don't necessarily think so. I think that this technology is archaic, and I don't think it's going to be our best bet to go that route. And it's kind of a dead end when you start chasing all that stuff. Sometimes it doesn't run very well, and it's not easy to tune. It's really not easy to tune. And there's very few people that still do it. So there's those problems with that. So that's option number one. Throttle body, mass airflow, cam, heads, and injectors, then the tune. I don't know how much a tune would be.
Expensive.
And I just still have to look it up, see who still does that kind of stuff. But anyways, second option is we get the heads, cam. All the heads and cam are going to be the same all the way through this whole thing. But heads, cam, then we do a Holley LS style lower intake, upper intake plenum fuel rails. So that's another option. That gets rid of, I think it uses MAP. I don't think it uses mass air. But we have to get an LS throttle body to work with it. So that's an option. So the throttle body, upper and lower intake, plenum from Holley, and Terminator X. And then the heads cam, that should do it for that option. Again, that's another expensive option.
Expensive.
And again, I don't know that it's going to be the best or see the results that we really want to see. It's going to have a power. It's going to be snappy. It's going to be fast, but is it the best bang for the buck? I don't know. So option number 3, we get a carb lower intake plenum, get rid of the mass airflow, get rid of the throttle body and these injectors and that computer over there, Duraspark, and we put in an HEI and we do a Holley Sniper 2. So Sniper 2 comes with its own brain, comes with a harness, can go up to 650 horsepower naturally aspirated, and it'd be easy to run some boost through it. It'll self-program, and you can run your own fuel tables. I'm not trying to sell for them, but and this is same for the Holley upper and lower intake plenum for the fuel injection and Terminator X. But you can run 550 horsepower or so on boosted side of the Sniper 2. Up to 550 horsepower. So that's option number 3. It might be our cheapest option. again with the heads and cam, and that should be all for that whole build. And I think that alleviates a lot of problems, and it's tunable. I think that's our cheapest option. So, and then category B, option 1, this engine isn't going to be worth it, or it's toast when we take it out and look everything over. So category B, option 1, 351. So 351 has been kind of a pain to source and find, only in the sense that looking for a roller 351 is 94 to 96 or 97 F-150, F-250 Bronco. And so the problem with this is that I can find a 351 all day long, and any of those other years for cheap, like $500, $600, is that those years people know what they have, the junkyards know what they have, and they want money for them. Or you got to buy the whole truck, which I guess isn't a totally bad option. We can find something else to throw in the truck after we yank it out, if provided it's a good truck. But it's something that's an extra expense that we don't need to do. But it's like $1,200 on the low end for the 94 to 97 roller 351. So what we can do with that is we can take that engine, consider that money that we just talked about for the engine itself, take that engine, throw it in here. Would need to change up some accessory brackets. It would probably need new headers. I think that flange hits the steering column or the steering shaft down there with the higher deck on the 351. That lower intake plenum would not work. We would have to find one from a Lightning or a GT40 intake plenum aftermarket one, which is like $1,200. Again, people know what they have with those, and so they're expensive. And then the motor mounts, and I think the bell housing, everything else bolts up just fine for the transmission. And so then here we're at an issue with that. If I just left the factory intake upper and lower on the 351 and the throttle body that's on there, we're really not gaining anything at all. We've spent all that money for the swap and we're not gaining anything at all. So I don't think that's even considered an option to go with. The next thing is that everything we talked about to make this engine have more power, we would have to do to the 351. It's heads, cam, mass airflow, throttle body, injectors, and then program the computer. If we don't take the computer, the OBD1 or OBD2 from the truck, which I don't think is a great option, but you can reuse this computer and all that. And I believe you can reuse the Durspark distributor from the truck itself. Don't quote me on that. But anyways, that's something. So you'd have to do all the same things to the 351 because the 351 has the same heads, pretty sure, or an equivalent of these exact same E7 heads, and they flow even worse on a larger displacement engine. So there's that. I can take this cam from this engine and put it in that truck with some GT40 heads. Got to get stiffer springs to save some money down in that way. Would I end up having to do that all over again with an upgrade of different heads and a different cam? Probably. So there's that as well. That doesn't seem like a very efficient option, getting all the same things we needed to do to this engine for 351 to stay in this configuration with the OBD1, the A9L computer, and all that business. So all that being super archaic, the next option is we do the same thing with the Sniper upper and lower LS style intake plenum with the fuel rails and Terminator X and harness with the heads cam. So that is an option. We still have to do all the swap parts, stuff like that, but there's that updates it. We got to get an LS throttle body again to make that work. But that's option number 2. And then option number 3 of this category is the same thing we were talking about doing. HEI and a carb intake manifold and Sniper 2 heads cam. So I think again that's going to be the cheapest option. And then I think the cheapest way to go with this whole 351, if we went that way, was take this cam get GT40 heads, get an HEI distributor, and the carb manifold, and the Sniper 2. I think that's the cheapest way to go. And then we're fuel injected, and we have a tunable fuel map and computer. Good to go. Get rid of the A9L, get rid of this mass airflow, the throttle body, all the crap that goes along with this OBD1 system that's in here. Throw it away. Get rid of it. So there's that. And then there's the final option, which is an LS.
Stop yelling at me!
Which I can't completely leave out because it's just, when you're talking all the money in all that direction, it's similar amount of money to do the LS with the Terminator X, and the swap might be a little more because it took about $6,000 to swap an LS into that truck, and it's pretty straightforward. So LS swaps aren't as cheap as everybody puts on. They're pretty expensive with all the here's and there's and mounts and everything else that goes along with it. But there is that. So what do you guys think with this? It's coming out no matter what. Oil pan leaks, it's making noise, and puking coolant some reason. Maybe there's a head gasket or something causing pressure in the system. Then the transmission, fifth gear, the synchro is going out on it, so you got to kind of double clutch it. Pinion seal's leaking. So all of this is coming out no matter what. What do you think we should do on those three options? And if you have more options, let me know. Those three options, if this engine is in good shape, continue to go with the upgrade of this A9L and OBD1 system with the Ford, with heads and cam and throttle body, mass airflow, injectors, and then send the computer out to be tuned or have a dyno tuned or whatever. Then the other option was the Holley intake manifold, the LS style intake plenum with the rails, and a Terminator X with a heads and cam. Or the third option, the Holley Sniper 2 with a carb intake manifold, heads and cam. Or if this engine isn't good, the 351 with the same options, or an LS. I need you guys to give me some input, share your experience, tell me what you've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, everything that you've done with this 5.0, because I know we've all thrown a ton of money. I threw a ton of money at my 91 GT, really didn't get a whole lot of power out of it with the throttle body, mass airflow, injectors, so on and so forth. So what do you think are the best options? Keep in mind that we're trying to mitigate a lot of lost monies with these upgrades. So if we go GT40 heads or AFR heads or something with this engine, later on, should this engine crap out or we decide to go with 351, that's not lost money. At cam heads, it can be swapped over to the 351. Not lost money, provided it's a roller 351. It can be swapped over, not lost money. The lost money in that scenario would be the lower intake manifold or getting the whole thing with the Holley system. So the things that I don't want to do is go and get trick flow intake manifold, and then I can't use that intake manifold on anything else. It's just this engine, this system, a variant thereof. So I don't want to lose money in that sense. And I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on getting an intake manifold, injectors, and everything else on a 351, come to find out that it's just not what I want, or the 302 and it's just not what I want, and then go and do an LS or a Godzilla. Which is, it's in there. We're thinking if we can find one cheap enough. Beyond that, this is pipe dreams. Don't get excited. That's what I don't want to do. I don't want to lose money by doing the options that are only particular to one area. If we're going to do options, we want to do options that can be moved and carry over to something else. So keep that in mind. But let me know your experiences. Let me know what you thought worked best, and comment that down below and see if it helps push in the right direction of what we should do with this thing and what our best options are. So thanks for listening to me run through some options on this guy. And the next couple episodes or so, we'll tear this thing out, see exactly what we're looking at. But looking forward to hearing from you guys what you think and what you've got in in mind for this, and should be interesting. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, definitely comment down below with your experience, and as always, have fun.